welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. Radio log, late night with Marcus D. July 17, 2025. The first call came in at 11:42 p.m. on a sweltering Tuesday night. I remember checking the timestamp because we normally don't get calls this late unless it's some drunk wanting to request Lynyrd Skynyrd for the 100th time. I had just finished a segment on local jazz festivals when the studio line lit up. Late night with Marcus D. You're on the air. Hey, Marcus. The woman's voice was steady but unnaturally tight. I'm calling about something weird that happened today. I've been listening to your show for years, and I know you sometimes talk about strange things happening around the city. I adjusted my headphones, sliding the volume fader up slightly. We get our fair share of oddball callers at WNOU, but something in her tone made me pay attention. I'm listening, I said. There's this man I saw today, just standing on the corner of Royal and Conti in the Quarter. Nothing unusual about him at first. Average height, dark hair, wearing a light gray suit despite the heat. But he was just watching, not moving. When I came back that way 2 hours later, he was in the exact same spot, same position. Hadn't moved an inch. I chuckled into the mic. Could have been one of those street performers who pretend to be statues. You know? They're all over the Quarter. That's what I thought too. But then I saw him again when I got home to Marigny. Same man, same suit, just standing across from my apartment building. That's 4 miles away, and I drove directly home. There's no way. I thanked her, made some comment about New Orleans being full of doppelgangers, and moved on to the traffic report. Just another Tuesday night in the city where the weird is practically mundane. But then the second call came in, and the third. By the end of my shift at 2 a.m., 6 different people from 6 different neighborhoods had called to describe the same man. Same details each time: medium build, dark hair, light gray suit, expressionless face, just standing, watching. The next morning, I nearly forgot about it until my phone buzzed with an emergency alert as I was fixing my coffee. New Orleans Emergency Management. Reports of suspicious individuals loitering in multiple neighborhoods are being investigated. Residents are advised these are likely different individuals. Maintain normal vigilance but no cause for concern. Seemed like an oddly specific alert for what should be routine police work. I screenshotted it before it disappeared from my phone. At the station that afternoon, I mentioned the calls to my producer, Vince. People seeing the same guy everywhere? Classic urban legend forming in real time, he said, not looking up from his laptop. Let's lean into it for tonight's show. Get some more calls. Make it a segment. The man in the gray suit or something. You don't think it's weird that emergency management sent out an alert about it? Vince shrugged. City's jumpy after those bridge jumpers last month. Probably just covering their bases. I wasn't convinced, but the prospect of a ratings boost was appealing. We put out a social media post asking listeners if they'd spotted the man in the gray suit and to call in with details. By the time my show started at 10 p.m., our call screen was already blinking with waiting callers. So you saw him too? Where exactly? I asked a caller named Dina from Uptown, outside the Whole Foods on Magazine, just standing by the newspaper box, totally still. When people walked by, his head would turn, just his head, to follow them. Like one of those security cameras. And what time was this? Around 3 p.m. today. The next caller had seen him at 3:15 p.m. in Treem, nearly 4 miles away. Another spotted him at 3:30 p.m. outside a coffee shop in Mid-City. The timing made it impossible for it to be the same person moving around the city. Between calls, I pulled up traffic cameras from those neighborhoods, scanning them for any sign of a man in a gray suit. The quality was terrible, and most angles didn't show the spots callers mentioned. My phone vibrated again with another emergency alert. New Orleans Emergency Management. Social media reports of a specific individual seen in multiple locations are not verified. Spreading unconfirmed sightings may cause unnecessary public concern. Normal police patrols are ongoing. This was getting interesting. 2 emergency alerts in one day about the same thing. Someone in city government was definitely paying attention. Around midnight, I took a call that changed everything. Late night with Marcus D. You're on the air. Hey, Marcus. The voice was male, older, with the distinct accent of a New Orleans native. I work security downtown, and I've got something you might want to know about this gray suit guy. Go ahead, I said, signaling my sound engineer to boost the call quality. I've got access to a lot of security cameras across different buildings. Out of curiosity, I went back through today's footage after hearing your callers. Found him in 8 different locations. Simultaneously, my skin prickled. What do you mean, simultaneously? I mean, at 3:17 p.m. today, he was standing outside the Sender Theater, outside One Shell Square in Jackson Square, and on 5 other corners, all at the exact same moment. And before you ask, yes, I'm absolutely certain it's the same person. Same build, same suit, same posture. Even the same damn shadow angle. I knew better than to openly question this on air. New Orleans thrives on its mysteries. But I needed verification. Any chance you could share that footage? Already downloading it. There's an email address on your station website, right? Before I could answer, the studio lights flickered, and the soundboard emitted a low, crackling hum. The call dropped. We lose him. I asked my sound engineer, who was frowning at her equipment. Yeah, but it's not just the call. Something weird just happened with the whole system. The emergency alert tone blared through my headphones, making me wince. But unlike the mobile alerts from earlier, this one was coming through our emergency broadcast system receiver, the one that's supposed to only activate for severe weather, Amber Alerts, or national emergencies. The automated voice began, "This is a test of the emergency alert system for the New Orleans metropolitan area. Please stand by for important information." There was a long pause, then static, then something else, a voice that sounded computerized but somehow wrong, like it was struggling with human speech patterns. "Multiple sightings. Please disregard observation protocol." In effect, more static. Then the standard, "This concludes the test of the emergency alert system." My sound engineer stared at me wide-eyed. That wasn't a normal test message. "Did you record it?" I asked urgently. She nodded. "System automatically archives all AS activations." I finished the show in a daze, taking a few more calls but barely registering the details. After signing off, I downloaded both the call recordings and the emergency alert audio to my personal phone. Something wasn't right. As I walked to my car in the empty parking lot, I glanced across the street toward the shadowed storefront of a closed antique shop. A figure stood motionless under the broken streetlight. Medium build, dark hair, light gray suit. Even from this distance, I could feel him watching me. I fumbled with my keys, practically diving into my car. When I looked back, the figure was gone. My phone vibrated in my pocket with another alert. New Orleans Emergency Management. Disregard previous alerts. System testing in progress. Resume normal activities. But there was nothing normal about any of this. Not the sightings, not the alerts, and certainly not the way my skin crawled when I realized that the timestamp on this latest alert was 3:17 a.m., the exact time that mysterious security guard had mentioned. I had the unsettling feeling that whatever was happening was just beginning. Radio log, late night with Marcus D. July 18th, 2025. I barely slept after my shift. The image of that figure under the broken streetlight kept jerking me awake just as I'd drift off. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself it was just another random guy in a suit, that my mind had connected dots that weren't really there. Then my phone buzzed with another alert. New Orleans Emergency Management. Due to increased call volume, NOPD reminds citizens that non-emergency sightings of individuals should not be reported to 911. Use standard non-emergency line for suspicious activity. This was getting ridiculous. 3 emergency alerts in less than 24 hours about people watching other people. In a city where watching tourists is practically a local sport, I forwarded the screenshot to Vince with the message, "Something's up. City doesn't waste alerts on loiterers." His response came quickly, "Already trending. #GraySuitMan is all over local Twitter. We're definitely making this tonight's main topic." I spent the morning combing through social media, finding dozens of posts from people claiming to have seen the man. The descriptions were eerily consistent. Not just the gray suit and dark hair, but specific details like how he stood with his weight shifted slightly to the right, hands at his sides, fingers splayed at an odd angle. By afternoon, I needed coffee and fresh air. I walked to my usual spot in the Bywater, feeling strangely exposed on streets I'd walked 1,000 times before. Inside Cloudy Day Coffee, the television above the counter was tuned to the local news, where an NOPD spokesman was addressing reporters. No credible threat to public safety. These reports appear to be a case of social suggestion and heightened awareness after yesterday's social media activity. Officer Baptiste will be coordinating our response to these non-emergency calls. The camera panned to a stone-faced officer standing slightly behind the spokesman. Officer Jerome Baptiste looked distinctly uncomfortable in front of the cameras, his expression fixed somewhere between boredom and irritation. The barista slid my iced coffee across the counter. "You hear about this nonsense?" she asked, nodding toward the TV. "Yeah. Actually, we covered it on my radio show last night." Her eyes widened slightly. "You're Marcus D? My roommate listens to your show. She called about seeing that guy yesterday." "Really? Where?" "Outside her work in the CBD. Said he was just standing there for hours. Security finally went to check on him, but he was gone the second they looked away." She lowered her voice. "Thing is, I saw him too. Different place, same time. Over by the levee in Holy Cross." A chill ran down my spine despite the July heat. "You're sure it was the same guy? Gray suit in this heat? Dark hair, kind of average everything else?" "Yeah." She glanced around before continuing. "But here's the weird part. My roommate texted me about seeing him while I was looking right at him across town. Sent me a picture and everything." She pulled out her phone, scrolled briefly, then handed it to me. The photo showed a man standing on a sidewalk outside an office building downtown. The image was taken from a distance, but I could make out the gray suit, the rigid posture. His face was turned just enough away from the camera that his features were indistinct. "When was this taken?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yesterday at 2:43 p.m. I've got a picture from the levee at the exact same time." She swiped to another photo on her phone. The timestamp read 2:43 p.m. Different background, the Mississippi River and grassy levee instead of glass office buildings, but unmistakably the same figure in the same position. I felt suddenly lightheaded. "Mind if I use these on tonight's show? I won't mention your names." She hesitated, then nodded. "Just be careful, okay? My cousin works dispatch for NOPD. Says they've been told to flag any calls about this guy for special routing. Not normal procedure." I thanked her and left, the iced coffee sweating in my hand. Forgotten. As I walked back toward my apartment, I found myself scanning every street corner, every alley entrance, every spot a person might stand unnoticed. That's when I saw him. He was across Dauphine Street, perfectly still beside a weathered shotgun house with peeling blue paint. Gray suit, dark hair, medium build. His face was turned slightly away from me, but I could tell he was watching me from the corner of his eye. My first instinct was to cross the street, confront him, demand answers, but something stopped me. Some primal warning system deep in my brain screamed danger. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording video, zooming in as much as the camera would allow. Through the screen, I could see him more clearly. His skin seemed too smooth, like a department store mannequin. And he was completely motionless, not the stillness of someone trying not to move, but the absolute stillness of an object. Not even a flutter of clothing in the breeze. A city bus rumbled between us, blocking my view for 3 seconds at most. When it passed, he was gone. The video was still recording. I played it back immediately, hands shaking. There he was, just as I'd seen him, and then the bus, and then empty sidewalk. I hadn't imagined it. My phone rang, startling me so badly I nearly dropped it. Vince, Marcus, you need to get to the station now. We've got over 30 callers on hold, all wanting to talk about gray suit sightings. And NOPD just sent an officer over. Says he needs to speak with us about our broadcast last night. Which officer? I asked, already knowing the answer. Baptiste. Jerome Baptiste. I arrived at the station to find Officer Baptiste waiting in our small lobby, scrolling through his phone with a scowl. He was a compact man with close-cropped gray hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much to be easily surprised. Mr. Devereaux, he said, not offering his hand. Mind if we talk privately? I led him to our break room, away from the growing commotion in the studio. Through the glass, I could see Vince juggling phone lines, looking simultaneously stressed and thrilled at the unexpected attention. Your show about this gray suit man is causing problems, Baptiste said once we were alone. People are flooding our lines with sightings, paranoid reports, the works. We've got real crimes to deal with. With all due respect, officer, people were seeing this guy before we talked about it. We're just reporting what's happening. Baptiste's expression didn't change. You're reporting gossip and encouraging mass hysteria. There is no single man being spotted all over the city simultaneously. That's impossible. I have photos of men in gray suits. New Orleans has thousands of business people, tourists, and yes, even odd characters who might stand around watching people. Your listeners are connecting unrelated sightings because you've suggested there's a pattern. He wasn't wrong about suggestion being powerful, but that didn't explain everything. What about the emergency alerts? 3 in less than a day about this specific situation? That's not standard protocol. Something flickered across Baptiste's face. Uncertainty, maybe, or concern, before his professional mask returned. Higher-ups are worried about public panic. That's all. So you don't think there's anything unusual happening? Baptiste hesitated. I didn't say that. Just that there's no supernatural duplicating man stalking the city. He leaned forward. Look, off the record, we've had an unusual pattern of missing persons this month. Nothing concrete connecting them, but the timing with these sightings. It's making some people nervous. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed with another alert. Baptiste's phone sounded simultaneously. NOLA Emergency Management. Reports of unauthorized emergency personnel should be verified through official channels. All legitimate responders carry identification. Request credentials if uncertain. Baptiste stared at his phone, frowning. What does that mean? I asked. I don't know. This didn't come through our department channels. He stood abruptly. I need to check something. In the meantime, try not to cause a panic with your show tonight. As he left, I heard my name being called urgently from the studio. Vince was waving me over, pointing at one of the monitors. On the screen was a traffic camera feed showing Canal Street. Standing on every corner 1, 2, 3, 4 identical figures in gray suits, all perfectly still, all watching the intersection from different angles. The timestamp in the corner of the feed read 5:17 p.m. Right now, my phone buzzed again. Message from unknown number. He sees you looking. Stop. Radio log. Late night with Marcus D. July 19th, 2025. Last night's show was a blur. After seeing those traffic camera feeds showing identical figures on all 4 corners of Canal Street, I barely held it together on air. The phone lines were jammed for 6 straight hours. We had to bring in additional staff just to screen calls. Everyone had a story now. The gray suit man had been spotted in every neighborhood. At all hours, always watching, never interacting. I played it careful with my commentary, mindful of Baptiste's warning about causing panic. But the calls themselves told the story. something impossible was happening in New Orleans. After the show, I copied the traffic camera footage Vince had captured onto a flash drive. I wasn't letting this evidence disappear. The timestamp data was embedded in the video. 4 identical men, for different corners, same exact moment. No quadruplets could coordinate that level of precision. When I finally got home around 3 a.m., I found an envelope taped to my apartment door.
No markings, no postie.
Inside was a single sheet of paper with a string of numbers written in jagged handwriting. 95.3 to 87.9, 104.7 to 98.5, 92.1 to 89.3. Radio frequencies, all of them outside the normal FM band ranges we used for broadcasting. A note at the bottom simply read, "Listen at 3:17. Morning or night, it didn't specify. But given the recurring appearances of 3:17 in this whole bizarre situation, I had a feeling it was AM. I had about 12 hours to figure out what this meant. Sleep was out of the question. I spent the morning researching those frequency numbers, trying to understand what they might broadcast. Most were in ranges reserved for specialized communications, aviation, emergency services, military. Not the kind of signals an ordinary radio could pick up. Fortunately, as a sound engineer by training, I had equipment at home that could scan these frequencies. Nothing fancy, but enough to listen in if there was actually something to hear. Around noon, my phone buzzed with the now familiar emergency alert tone. New Orleans Emergency Management. Testing of emergency broadcast systems will occur throughout the day. Disregard any test messages. In the event of an actual emergency, alerts will begin with, "This is not a test." The timing couldn't be coincidental. Someone knew I had those frequencies, knew I would be listening. But was this a warning to stop, or a confirmation that I was on the right track? I needed more information before 3:17. On impulse, I called Officer Baptiste's precinct, only to be told he had taken a sudden leave of absence. "Family emergency," the desk sergeant said, though something in his tone suggested otherwise. With few options left, I decided to visit the station early. Our broadcast equipment was more sophisticated than what I had at home. If anyone would know about unusual frequencies being used in the city, it would be our chief engineer, Ray. I found him in the equipment room, buried in cable management as usual. "Strange frequencies outside the commercial FM band?" Ray repeated after I showed him the numbers. "Could be anything. Emergency services, maritime communications, military. Could they carry voice transmissions? Sure, with the right equipment. But they'd need a powerful transmitter." He studied the list again. "These specific frequencies, though, they're oddly familiar." Ray pulled up a schematic on his computer. "Yeah, thought so. These aren't random. They form a pattern that matches our emergency broadcast system's verification sequence, like a shadow of the main system." "Meaning what exactly?" Pressed. "Meaning someone's set up a parallel emergency alert system. Not the official one, but something piggybacking on its infrastructure." Ray's expression grew serious. "That's not just unusual, Marcus. That's illegal as hell. Homeland Security level illegal." I showed him the emergency alerts I'd been receiving. "Think these could be coming from this shadow system?" Ray examined them carefully. "The official ones probably not. But that garbled message you heard through your headphones during the broadcast? That could be someone hijacking the frequency. Who would have that capability? Government agencies for sure. Military. Maybe some very sophisticated hackers. But why go through all that trouble just to mess with people about some guy in a suit?" He had a point. Unless this wasn't just about a guy in a suit. "Can you help me monitor those frequencies at 3:17? I asked. Ray hesitated, then nodded. "I'll set up in Studio C. Nobody uses it until evening anyway." By 3 p.m., Ray had rigged a monitoring station capable of picking up all 6 frequencies simultaneously. We sat in the soundproof booth of Studio C, headphones on, watching digital displays as the minutes ticked by. "If this is someone's idea of a prank," Ray muttered, It's an elaborate one. 3:15 p.m. Nothing but static across all channels. 3:16 p.m. The static on frequency 95.3 began to pulse rhythmically. 3:17 p.m. exactly. All 6 frequencies activated simultaneously. At first, just a wash of white noise that made me wince. Then, emerging from the chaos, voices, overlapping, distorted, speaking in what sounded like different languages, though all with the same flat effect. Observation Protocol 7. Human mimicry sequence initialized. Convergence at coordinates. Calibration of vessel integrity at 72%. Ray frantically adjusted levels, trying to clean up the signal. This isn't English. Wait, now it is? Now it's something else. What the hell? The voices continued for exactly 60 seconds, fading in and out of comprehensibility, sometimes sounding mechanical, sometimes eerily human. At exactly 3:18 p.m., they stopped. In the silence that followed, a single voice spoke clearly in perfect, accentless English. Emergency alert system test complete. The stranger protocol remains active. All witnesses have been logged. Then silence. Complete silence, not even the background hiss of an open channel. Ray pulled off his headphones, his face pale. Tell me you recorded that. I nodded, pointing to the digital recorder that had been running the entire time. Every second. Good. Because I'm pretty sure we just intercepted something classified. Ray began disconnecting equipment with shaky hands. Marcus, this isn't some urban legend anymore. That was structured communication. Military or government, using an unauthorized emergency broadcast system. About the gray suit man, I added. They called it the Stranger Protocol. Whatever that means. Ray handed me the digital recorder. Copy this immediately. Multiple backups. If someone's going to come looking for it. The studio door burst open. Vince stood there wide-eyed. Marcus, there's someone here to see you. Says she's from Homeland Security. My stomach dropped. Did she give a name? Agent Winters. Sarah Winters. And she doesn't look happy. Ray and I exchanged glances. Stall her, I said. Give me 2 minutes. As Vince left, I quickly transferred the recording to my phone and a cloud backup, then handed the original recorder to Ray. Hide this somewhere safe. I'll handle the agent. Ray nodded grimly. Be careful. That transmission. Some of those phrases weren't right. Human mimicry? Vessel integrity? That's not standard government terminology. He was right. Nothing about this was standard. I took a deep breath and headed to the lobby, my mind racing. How did Homeland Security respond so quickly to our monitoring? Unless they were already watching us. Unless they knew about the frequencies before I did. As I rounded the corner, I saw her, a tall woman in a charcoal pantsuit. Her dark hair pulled back severely, speaking in low tones to our receptionist. Agent Sarah Winters turned as I approached, fixing me with a penetrating stare. Mr. Devereaux, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. We need to discuss your recent interest in emergency broadcast frequencies. She held up her phone, displaying the list of numbers that had been left at my door. The exact same list. And your coverage of what you're calling the gray suit man. How did you get that list? I asked, fighting to keep my voice level. Something like amusement flickered across her face. The better question, Mr. Devereaux, is who left it for you, and why they want you listening at 3:17. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another emergency alert. This is not a test. Unauthorized personnel claiming federal authority should be reported immediately. Verification code required for all federal agents. Stranger 317. I looked up from my phone to find Agent Winters watching me intently, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth. Received another alert, Mr. Devereaux? May I see it? I hesitated, then turned my phone screen toward her. Her expression didn't change as she read it. Well, she said finally, it seems we have much to discuss about frequencies, protocols, and strangers. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small silver badge. Shall we speak somewhere more private? The badge looked official enough, but as she held it out, I noticed her fingers splayed at an odd angle, exactly like the descriptions of the gray suit man. Radio log, late night with Marcus D. July 20th, 2025. Agent Winter's credentials looked legitimate, Department of Homeland Security, Special Investigations Division, but something about her felt off. Maybe it was the way she held herself too perfectly still, or how her eyes seemed to scan my face with mechanical precision. Or maybe it was just those fingers, splayed at that same unnatural angle I'd seen in every description of the gray suit man. Your studio, she said, not a request. I led her to our interview room, deliberately avoiding Studio C where Ray was still hiding our recording equipment. Vince hovered by the door, clearly unsure whether to stay or go. It's fine, I told him, though I wasn't convinced. Could you grab us some coffee? Once Vince left, Agent Winters sat across from me, posture rigid, hands folded on the table. Up close, her skin had an unusual quality. Flawless but somehow wrong, like high-end CGI that doesn't quite capture human imperfections. Mr. Devereaux, what do you know about the Stranger Protocol? She asked without preamble. I decided to play dumb. Only what I heard in that transmission. Some kind of government program related to these sightings. Her head tilted slightly, an oddly mechanical movement. And who told you to monitor those frequencies? Anonymous tip. Envelope on my door. Do you often follow instructions from anonymous sources? When they're connected to a story I'm covering, yes. Agent Winters nodded slowly. And this story, these sightings, you've been encouraging your listeners to report them, correct? I've been discussing what people are already seeing, I countered. Something is happening in this city, and people deserve to know. What people deserve, Mr. Devereaux, is security. Her voice remained perfectly level, devoid of any emotional cadence. Mass hysteria threatens public safety. Your broadcasts are creating panic. If there's nothing to these sightings, why is Homeland Security involved? A fraction of a second's pause. We monitor potential threats to national security. Mass panic qualifies. And what about Officer Baptiste suddenly taking leave? Or these unauthorized emergency alerts? Another pause, longer this time. Officer Baptiste is assisting our investigation. As for the alerts, they're being investigated as a cybersecurity breach. She was lying. Baptiste's precinct had been genuinely confused about his absence, and Ray had confirmed these alerts weren't simple hacks. Now, about your source, Agent Winters continued, reaching into her jacket. She produced not a weapon, as my paranoid mind expected, but a small silver device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a medical scanner. I need to know who gave you those frequencies. I told you it was anonymous. Did you see this person? Did they resemble the figure people are reporting? The question caught me off guard. No, just an envelope. Why would you think, Mr. Devereaux? Her voice dropped lower. Has the stranger made direct contact with you? The way she said it, the stranger rather than this stranger or the gray suit man, sent a chill down my spine. She knew exactly what we were dealing with.
No, Ian Suara truthfully.
But you know what it is, don't you? Not mass hysteria. Something real. Agent Winter's expression remained unchanged, but her fingers twitched slightly, the first truly human gesture I'd seen from her. What it is, she said carefully, is classified. What I can tell you is that your broadcasts are interfering with containment efforts. Containment of what? She ignored my question. You will cease discussing these sightings on your program. You will not monitor those frequencies again. You will turn over any recordings you made today. She slid a business card across the table. If you receive any further anonymous messages or see the stranger yourself, you will contact me immediately. Before I could respond, Vince returned with the coffee. Agent Winters stood abruptly. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Devereaux. I'll expect those recordings by end of day. As she walked out, my phone buzzed with an alert. New Orleans Emergency Management. Reports of unauthorized personnel questioning citizens should be directed to NOPD. All federal agents must present verification code when requested. I looked up, but Agent Winters was already gone. What was that about? Vince asked. I'm not sure, I admitted. But I think we just got an official warning to stop covering this story. Vince lowered his voice. While you were in here, I got a call from that security guard who contacted us about the multiple sightings. Says he's got new footage, all from this morning. The gray suit man is appearing more frequently, sometimes multiple figures on the same street. Did he send it? Better. He wants to meet. Says he has something to show us that can't be sent electronically. I hesitated, thinking of Agent Winter's warning. But if Homeland Security was covering this up, that only confirmed there was something real to uncover. Set it up, I told Vince. But somewhere public. We met the security guard Frank Delacroix at a busy cafe in the French Quarter. He was a nervous-looking man in his 50s, constantly glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to be watching. I shouldn't be here, were his first words as he slid into our booth. But people need to know what's happening. And what is happening, Mr. Delacroix? I asked. Instead of answering, he pulled out a tablet and brought up a video file. This is from this morning. Looking at 9 different security cameras across the city, all capturing the exact same moment. The footage showed time-stamped feeds from various locations, outside a bank, in a parking garage, on a busy street corner. In each frame, a figure in a gray suit stood motionless. 9 identical men, 9 different locations, same exact time. They're increasing, Frank said quietly. First it was 1, then a few, now 9 that I can confirm. By next week, how many? Dozens? Hundreds? Have you shown this to the police? Vince asked. Frank laughed bitterly. I tried. Got redirected to some special task force that never called back. Then yesterday, someone claiming to be FBI came to my office asking about my access to security cameras. He leaned forward. But here's what's really scaring me. Look at this footage from yesterday versus today. He swiped to another file. Same locations, but subtle differences in the figures. I don't see, I began. Look at their posture, Frank interrupted. Yesterday, they just stood there. Today, they're all angled towards security cameras, like they know they're being watched. They're adapting. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another alert. NOLA emergency alert. Mass hallucination phenomenon affecting New Orleans area. Citizens are advised that visual perception may be compromised. Avoid making major decisions based on visual input alone. Frank's phone buzzed too. He checked it and frowned. That's not the alert I just got. He showed us his screen. Emergency alert. Monitoring devices compromised. Human facsimiles have achieved 72% accuracy. Calibration continues. My blood ran cold. Different people were receiving different alerts. The system wasn't just compromised, it was being weaponized. Mr. Delacroix, I asked slowly, have you ever seen one of these figures up close? Made eye contact. He paled visibly. Once. Yesterday. Outside my apartment. He hesitated. Its eyes, they weren't right. Too dark. And when it blinked, it was sideways.
Vince shifted uncomfortably.
Sideways, like eyelids sliding from side to side instead of up and down. Frank's hands trembled as he put away his tablet. I think they're learning how to be human. Watching us. Copying us. Learning for what purpose? I asked. Frank looked at me, genuine fear in his eyes. Replacement. My phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Devereaux. It was Agent Winters. I know where you are and who you're meeting. This conversation violates the directive I gave you earlier. I felt a surge of anger. You're monitoring my phone? We're monitoring the stranger protocol, which now includes you. Her voice remained eerily calm. Look across the street, Mr. Devereaux. I turned toward the window. Across the busy street stood a familiar figure in a gray suit. As I watched, it raised its hand in a perfect mirror of my own movement. End this meeting now, Agent Winters continued, "Or we cannot guarantee your safety." The line went dead. When I looked back at the window, the figure was gone. Frank was staring at me, ashen-faced. "They're watching you two now, aren't they?" I nodded slowly, the reality of our situation sinking in. "I think they've been watching all along. The question is, what are they waiting for?" Radio log, late night with Marcus D. July 21st, 2025. After the cafe meeting with Frank Delacroix, I faced a decision. Back off as Agent Winters had ordered, or push deeper into whatever the stranger protocol actually was. The responsible choice would have been to drop it. But the image of that figure across the street, mirroring my movements with perfect precision, haunted me. This was no mass hallucination. I needed expertise beyond what Frank or I possessed, someone who could help make sense of the impossible. That's when I remembered Dr. Eliza Montclair. Eliza and I had been close in college. She'd been studying neuroscience while I focused on audio engineering. We drifted apart after graduation when she'd pursued an unorthodox path into parapsychology, eventually earning both respect and ridicule for her research on collective perceptual phenomena. If anyone could provide insight into citywide sightings of identical figures, it would be her. Finding her wasn't difficult. She was teaching at Tulane, but convincing her to meet required mentioning strange phenomena affecting multiple observers simultaneously. That piqued her interest enough to agree to coffee. "Marcus Devereaux," she said with a smile as she slid into the seat across from me at a small cafe far from the one where I'd met Frank. Still chasing strange sounds in the dark? Eliza hadn't changed much in the decade since college. Still the same intense gray eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses, same thoughtful expression. Only a few strands of silver in her dark hair hinted at the passing years. "Something like that," I replied. "Thanks for coming." Your message was intriguing. Mass sightings of identical figures? Sounds like my dissertation come to life. I showed her the photos and videos I'd collected, explained the radio frequencies, the contradictory emergency alerts, Agent Winters' warnings. As I spoke, her expression transformed from academic curiosity to genuine concern. "This isn't collective perception," she said finally. "These images show concrete evidence of multiple identical figures in different locations simultaneously. So what is it? Elaborate hoax? Government experiment?" Eliza removed her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. "I need to show you something." "Not here." Eliza's office at Tulane was cluttered with books, papers, and oddly, several antique mirrors. She locked the door behind us and pulled down the window shades before turning on her computer. 3 months ago, I began a research project on perception anomalies," she explained, typing rapidly. "Specifically, cases where multiple observers report seeing identical phenomena that shouldn't be possible." She pulled up a map dotted with colored pins. Each pin represents a cluster of reports. "Notice anything?" The pins formed a clear pattern, radiating outward from the Gulf of Mexico toward New Orleans. The earliest dates were from coastal communities, gradually moving inland until reaching the city within the past week. "It's spreading," I murmured. "Like a wave." "Exactly. And New Orleans isn't the first place this has happened." She clicked to another image, a similar map of Seattle from 2023. "They called it the Raincoat Man there. Yellow raincoat instead of a gray suit, but otherwise identical reports. Multiple simultaneous sightings, gradually increasing in frequency." "What happened in Seattle?" Eliza's expression darkened. "After 3 weeks of sightings, there was a massive power outage. When systems came back online 12 hours later, the sightings stopped completely. No explanation was ever given, and the people who saw this raincoat man showed subtle behavioral changes afterward. Nothing dramatic. Friends and family reported they seemed slightly off, using unfamiliar phrases, developing new habits." She hesitated. "Some reported memory gaps about the outage period." I felt a chill creep up my spine. "You think the same thing is happening here?" "I think it's accelerating. The Seattle phenomenon built over months. Here it's been days." She pulled up another file. This is from a security camera outside my department building yesterday. The footage showed a familiar sight, a figure in a gray suit standing motionless on the sidewalk. But as I watched, something happened I hadn't seen before. A student walked past the figure, nearly brushing shoulders. The gray suit man's head rotated, just the head, body remaining perfectly still, to follow the student with an unblinking gaze. "Watch the timestamp," Eliza said quietly. The student disappeared from frame. 10 seconds later, an identical student walked into view from the same direction, wearing the same clothes, carrying the same backpack, walking with the exact same gait. The gray suit man's head swiveled again, tracking this duplicate student just as it had the original. I struggled to find words. "Impossible," Eliza finished. "Yet there it is. And before you ask, yes, I verified that student exists. Jason Mercer, Jr., cognitive science major. I spoke with him this morning. He has no memory of passing that spot twice, insists he only walked by once." My phone buzzed. Another alert. NOLA Emergency Management. Reports of doppelgangers or duplicates are the result of stress-induced perceptual anomalies. Citizens experiencing such perceptions should seek immediate medical evaluation. I showed Eliza the message. She frowned. "These alerts, they're like countermeasures. Every time someone gets close to understanding what's happening, a new alert emerges to create doubt." She turned back to her computer. "But they're getting desperate. Look at the sightings map for today." The new map showed dozens of pins throughout New Orleans, no longer radiating from a single source but scattered everywhere, with clusters downtown and near the universities. "They're gathering information," Eliza said. "Learning. The student duplication isn't unique. I've documented 7 cases of apparent human replication following proximity to these figures." "Replication for what purpose?" Eliza hesitated. "I have a theory, but it sounds..." She was interrupted by a sharp knock at her office door. We both froze. "Dr. Montclair?" A woman's voice. "Department of Homeland Security. We need to speak with you regarding your recent research." My blood ran cold. Agent Winters had found us. Eliza motioned for me to stay quiet and quickly transferred files to a flash drive, which she pressed into my hand. "Take this. There's a back door through the lab." She nodded toward a connecting door. "If something happens to me, Professor..." The voice was harder now. "We know Mr. Devereaux is with you. Please open the door immediately." Eliza whispered urgently, "Find Officer Baptiste. He contacted me 3 days ago about similar observations before his leave of absence. Said if anything happened to him, I should look for a notebook at Café Envy on Decatur. Daily Journal. Go." The knocking became pounding. Eliza straightened her shoulders and moved toward the door while I slipped into the adjoining lab. Through the connecting door, I heard Eliza greeting them with forced politeness. "Agent Winters, is it? How can I help Homeland Security today? Your research into the Stranger Protocol has been deemed a national security risk." "I don't recall my work having that title," Eliza responded coolly. "Nevertheless, you'll need to come with us for questioning." I couldn't see what happened next, but I heard shuffling, then Eliza's voice, suddenly alarmed. "Your eyes, they're not." The sound cut off abruptly. I froze, listening intently, hearing nothing but my own heartbeat. Then footsteps moving away down the hallway. After waiting 5 excruciating minutes, I crept back into Eliza's office. It was empty, her computer still running but with the screen now dark. A notification popped up on her monitor. An incoming email with the subject line, Stranger Protocol Containment Failure. I was reaching for the mouse when all the lights in the building suddenly flickered. My phone buzzed again. Emergency alert. Power reduction scheduled for New Orleans metro area from 2300 hours tonight until 5 o'clock tomorrow. Essential services will remain operational. A power reduction just like Seattle before the Raincoat Man sightings stopped. A chill ran through me as another thought hit. What if the outage wasn't to stop the sightings but to facilitate whatever came next? I pocketed the flash drive Eliza had given me and headed for the exit, suddenly acutely aware of how many security cameras I passed on my way out. On the main quad, I stopped short. Across the lawn stood not one but three identical figures in gray suits, perfectly equidistant from each other, all perfectly still except for their heads, which turned in perfect unison to track my movement. My phone buzzed one final time. Message from unknown number. 72% calibration complete. Harvesting begins at shutdown. Personal blog entry, Marcus Devereaux, July 21st, 2025, 23:45. The flash drive weighs heavy in my pocket as I navigate the midnight streets of New Orleans. After escaping Tulane, I couldn't go home, not with Agent Winters and whatever, was with her potentially looking for me. The French Quarter seemed safer somehow, crowded even on a Monday night, a place where one more paranoid face wouldn't stand out. I find myself at Café Envy on Decatur Street just as Eliza instructed, though at this hour it's closed. The neighboring bar still pulses with life, jazz spilling onto the street along with laughing tourists oblivious to what's happening around them. How strange to stand at the precipice of something so terrifying while life continues its normal rhythm just feet away. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing since I left campus. The emergency alerts are coming faster now. NOLA Emergency Management. Update: nighttime curfew established effective immediately, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. due to increased reports of civil disturbance. Law enforcement authorized to detain violators without warrant. Followed 15 minutes later by NOLA Emergency Management. Correction: no curfew is currently in effect. Previous alert was issued in error. We apologize for any confusion. Then, most disturbing, NOLA Emergency Management. Citizens experiencing perceptual anomalies should report to designated evaluation centers. List of locations available at nolam.gov/centers. The website displays an interactive map showing 5 evaluation centers across the city. All schools or community centers now repurposed with military efficiency. Each marker on the map pulses with a sickly green glow. When I zoom in on the nearest location, there's a real-time counter showing current capacity, 147/500. They're collecting people who've seen the stranger. I duck into an alley beside the cafe, searching for some way in. The kitchen entrance is locked but not alarmed. A small mercy in a night that's offered few. With skills I haven't used since my misspent youth, I manage to jimmy the lock and slip inside. The cafe is dark except for the ambient glow of streetlights filtering through front windows. I use my phone's flashlight, keeping it pointed downward to avoid detection from outside. Behind the counter, I find staff lockers. Baptiste had mentioned this place specifically. Did he have access? Was he a regular? I try several lockers before finding one with a small notebook wedged in the back corner. JB, inscribed on the leather cover. Opening it confirms what I'd hoped, handwritten entries in what must be Officer Baptiste's precise script. I flip to recent entries, finding the last dated just 4 days ago, July 17th, 3rd sighting today. Same figure as before, gray suit, expressionless. Standing across from precinct this time. Mentioned to Captain Harris, who acted strange. Said I should take some time off. When I pressed, he denied seeing anything, though I watched him stare at the figure moments earlier. Something's not right. Winters from DHS came by, asking about unusual sightings. Never specified what kind. Didn't mention gray suit man, but kept pushing about whether officers had reported anything outside protocol. Feel like I'm being tested. We'll contact Dr. Montclair tomorrow. Her research might help make sense of this. The final entry sends ice through my veins. July 18th. Followed gray suit man last night after shift. Figure never acknowledged me, just kept walking at steady pace. Turned corner near Bourbon, lost sight for 2 seconds. When I rounded corner, saw myself walking away. Myself. Same uniform, same walk. Followed this doppelganger to my own apartment building, watched it enter with my key. Called Eliza immediately. Need to document everything now in case. The entry ends mid-sentence. Whatever Baptiste discovered cost him dearly. I snap photos of every page before carefully replacing the notebook exactly as I found it. As I close the locker, my phone buzzes again. Emergency alert. Power reduction schedule updated. Shutdown begins midnight. Duration extended to 12 hours. Shelter in place advised. Less than 15 minutes until blackout. I need to move. Outside, the streets have emptied considerably. The distant wail of sirens punctuates the night from multiple directions. Digital billboards that normally advertise hurricane preparedness now display uniform messages. Experiencing visual anomalies? Report to nearest evaluation center for assistance. I keep my head down, hoodie pulled up despite the summer heat. In my peripheral vision, I notice something that stops me cold. A figure in a gray suit standing motionless across the street, face obscured by shadow. I force myself not to react, not to look directly. Just keep walking. 1 block, 2 blocks. It's following me, always maintaining the same distance. When I speed up, somehow it keeps pace without appearing to move its legs. I duck into a side street, heart hammering against my ribs, and break into a run. Rounding the corner onto Royal Street, I collide with someone, a woman leaving a bar. We both stumble back, apologies tangling in the air between us. When our eyes meet, recognition flashes. Agent Winters? She doesn't look like the composed federal agent I met days ago. Her suit is rumpled, dark circles shadow her eyes, and there's a wild, hunted look about her. Devereaux. Her voice is hoarse. You need to get off the streets. Now, what happened to Dr. Montclair? Winters glances nervously over her shoulder. I never made it to her office. Someone wearing my face got there first. Ice blooms in my chest. What are you saying? They're replacing us, she hisses, grabbing my arm and pulling me into a recessed doorway. The stranger, it's not one entity. It's many, and they're learning, adapting, creating duplicates. Who's they? What do they want? I don't know exactly. I've been tracking similar incidents for 18 months. Seattle was just the beginning. Every city affected experiences the same pattern: sightings, duplications, then a blackout. After each blackout, the sightings stop, but people are different. Different how? Subtle changes in behavior, language patterns, social dynamics. Nothing dramatic enough to raise alarms, but enough that loved ones notice something's off. She runs a trembling hand through her hair. We thought it was some kind of psychological warfare at first, maybe foreign actors using advanced technology for deep infiltration. But then we captured footage of a transformation. She pulls out her phone, showing me a video, security footage from what looks like a hospital corridor. A gray-suited figure stands motionless before a door. After several seconds, its features begin to blur, rippling like disturbed water until its entire form shifts, resolving into the exact appearance of a doctor who had walked past moments earlier. The duplicate then enters the room the doctor had been heading toward. What happens to the originals? I ask, already dreading the answer. We don't know. Some are found with no memory of the time during the blackout. Others. She doesn't finish the thought. A familiar prickling sensation creeps up my neck. The feeling of being watched. I turn slowly to see a gray-suited figure standing directly across the street, perfectly still except for its head, which tilts at an unnatural angle as it regards us. Don't make eye contact, Winters whispers urgently. Too late. The stranger's gaze locks with mine, and for the first time, I see its eyes clearly. They're human in shape but utterly wrong in expression. Not blank as I thought before, but filled with cold, calculating intelligence. An intelligence that doesn't understand humanity but is learning, practicing, rehearsing. The eyes blink, a deliberate mechanical motion, like someone mimicking a human behavior they've studied but don't naturally possess. My phone buzzes, but when I check it, there's no alert, just static where the message should be. Winter's phone does the same. They're interfering with communications, she says. It's starting. As if on cue, the streetlights flicker once, twice, then extinguish. Building by building, the French Quarter descends into darkness. Emergency generators kick on in some establishments, casting eerie, isolated pools of light amid growing shadow. In one such pool, I see the stranger again, closer now, not 20 feet away. As I watch, its appearance begins to blur just like in Winter's video. The process is transfixing, horrifying yet impossible to look away from. "Run," Winters says, drawing her gun. "Find somewhere underground, away from cameras and people. Stay there until daylight." "What about you? I'll buy you time." Her voice is steady despite her fear. "Whatever they are, they can't replace everyone at once. They need the blackout to work unobserved. That's why you need to document everything. If enough people know what's happening, the stranger's transformation completes, and I stare in paralyzing horror at my own face looking back at me, expression eerily blank. Then it smiles, a perfect mimicry of human emotion that somehow contains none. "Go!" Winter shouts, raising her weapon. I run as the first shot echoes through darkened streets, followed by a sound that will haunt my nightmares forever. Not a scream, but a high-pitched, atonal whine that no human throat could produce. The city plunges into complete darkness around me. In the distance, shapes move with unnatural coordination through the blackout. Some wear the faces of people I've passed on the streets. Others still bear the featureless countenance of the original stranger. My last coherent thought before disappearing into the labyrinth of the French Quarter is a chilling realization. Those emergency alerts weren't warnings. They were progress reports. Emergency alert. Power restoration estimate. Unknown. Please remain indoors until further notice. Voice memo recording. Marcus Devereaux, July 22nd, 2025, 3:17 a.m. If anyone finds this recording, my name is Marcus Devereaux. I'm hiding in the maintenance tunnels beneath the old radio station where I work. The citywide blackout is in its third hour. I don't know if Agent Winters is alive. I don't know how many of them are out there now. I had to abandon my phone after I noticed it transmitting data despite being in airplane mode. They're using our network somehow. This is being recorded on an old dictaphone I found in the station's storage room. Technology they might not be monitoring. I made it to the radio station by moving through back alleys, keeping to the shadows. The emergency generators were active when I arrived, but I shut them down. Better to appear abandoned than draw attention. Besides, I needed darkness for what I was about to attempt. The flash drive Eliza gave me contained more than research files. There was an audio folder with dozens of recordings labeled with coordinates and timestamps, mostly from coastal areas. And there was a pattern in the frequencies, the same pattern I'd been noticing in our emergency broadcast. It wasn't just random interference. It was a signal. Let me explain what I found. Audio log transcription, 3:52 a.m. The blackout gave me cover to get into the station's main broadcasting booth, accessing equipment I normally wouldn't be authorized to use. Before the power went down, I downloaded all the emergency alert broadcasts from the past week onto a local hard drive. Something about their increasing irregularity had bothered me from the beginning. Using the station's spectrum analyzer running on battery backup, I isolated the carrier wave beneath each alert. Normal emergency broadcasts use standardized frequencies with minimal noise. These were different. Each contained embedded signals hiding beneath the audible messages. When I layered the alerts chronologically and ran them through a filter to extract the subsonic patterns, something emerged. A secondary broadcast hidden beneath the official warnings. I've never seen anything like it. The patterns weren't random noise but structured data, complex and rhythmic, escalating with each new alert. I compared these patterns to the coastal recordings from Eliza's flash drive. They matched perfectly, only the coastal signals were much simpler, like early prototypes of what was now flooding our emergency systems. That's when I made the connection. The phenomenon didn't start in New Orleans. It was perfected here. The coastal communities were test runs. Whatever these entities are, they've been gradually working their way inland, refining their methods with each new location. The stranger sightings, the emergency alerts, they're all connected to something bigger. I spent hours trying to decode these hidden broadcasts using every technique I know from audio engineering. When standard approaches failed, I tried something unconventional, playing the extracted signals at various speeds while running a visual spectrogram. At 1/8 speed, shapes appeared in the visualization that weren't just sound patterns. They looked like blueprints, schematics for something I couldn't identify, structures with impossible geometries, networks that resembled neural pathways but far more complex. And most disturbing of all, what appeared to be detailed maps of New Orleans with thousands of points marked throughout the city. Collection points, or targets. As I was processing this discovery, I heard something moving in the darkened hallway outside the booth. Not footsteps exactly, more fluid, like something approximating human movement without quite getting it right. I killed all power to my equipment and hid beneath the sound desk. Through the glass partition, I saw them, 3 figures moving with perfect synchronization, each wearing the face of someone I recognized. One was Officer Baptiste, another was a morning show host from our station, and the third was me. Not just similar, identical in every detail, down to the coffee stain on my sleeve from earlier that day. They moved through the darkened studio methodically, examining equipment, touching surfaces as if cataloging information. For 15 excruciating minutes, I watched my own doppelganger explore the space I've worked in for years, its movements becoming increasingly natural, more human with each passing minute. The 3 figures communicated without speaking, slight head tilts, almost imperceptible gestures that seemed coordinated through some unseen connection. Eventually, they left, but not before my duplicate placed something on the main console. A small, pulsing device that emitted no light but caused all the powered-down equipment to momentarily flicker back to life. After ensuring they were gone, I examined the device from a distance, careful not to touch it. It looked organic and technological simultaneously, glistening with an oily substance while housing what appeared to be circuitry. It was interfacing with our broadcast equipment somehow, even without power. I made the decision to remove it using a rubber equipment mat as protection. The moment I lifted it from the console, every piece of equipment in the studio came alive. Screens flickering with scrolling code, dials spinning, speakers emitting a high-pitched tone that made my teeth ache. Then, just as suddenly, everything went dark again. But something had changed. The device now pulsed in rhythm with a pattern I recognized from the hidden broadcasts. An accelerating sequence that matched what Eliza had labeled calibration complete in her notes. They weren't just hiding messages in our emergency alerts. They were using our entire emergency broadcast infrastructure as some kind of network. A neural network spread across the city, communicating with these duplicates. Voice memo continues. 4:38 a.m. I'm deeper in the tunnels now. I can hear movement above me, organized, methodical searches of the building. The device is sealed in a lead-lined equipment case, but it's still active. I can feel vibrations through the metal. While hiding, I've been reviewing Baptiste's photos and Eliza's research. There's a critical piece I missed earlier, a correlation between the stranger sightings and specific locations. Every single initial sighting occurred near emergency broadcast equipment, cell towers, radio transmitters, police scanners, weather alert systems. They're not just using our emergency systems, they're transforming them into something else. The calibration mentioned in those mysterious text messages refers to our entire communications infrastructure being repurposed. For what? The only clue comes from a partially corrupted file on Eliza's drive. Research notes from her investigation of the Seattle incident. Post-event analysis shows 73% of affected subjects exhibited altered brain wave patterns consistent with external reception capabilities. Subjects report increased sensitivity to electronic signals and occasional voice-like transmissions during periods of low electromagnetic activity. Hypothesis: the entities aren't replacing humans. They're reconfiguring them into network nodes for. The file ends there, but it's enough to form a terrifying picture. These duplicates aren't the end goal. They're preparing us for something worse. Wait, there's a sound coming through the ventilation system. A familiar tone that matches the hidden signals exactly, but loud enough to hear without equipment. It's the emergency broadcast system activation tone, but distorted, extended. They're broadcasting something from somewhere in the building above. I can hear speakers crackling to life despite the blackout. A voice that sounds almost human but not quite begins speaking. Citizens of New Orleans, the calibration process is now complete. Transition will commence in 2 hours. Please remain in your homes. Resistance causes unnecessary cellular damage. This message will repeat until sunrise. The voice is mine. They're using my voice, my actual radio voice, to deliver whatever this is. I need to find Agent Winters if she's still alive. We need to warn people before sunrise. The device in this case might be our only evidence of what's really happening. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the adjacent building. If I can reach it, I might be able to access the backup transmitter we use for emergency situations. It runs on a completely isolated system designed to function during catastrophic infrastructure failure. If you're hearing this, the transition they're planning isn't evacuation or quarantine. It's transformation. They're not just taking our faces, they want to repurpose humanity itself. I don't know if Baptiste discovered the same thing before he disappeared, but I understand now why all the alert systems have been compromised. It was never about warning us. It was about preparing us. Static intensifies, followed by a distant alarm tone. I have to move. They're coming. Remember, don't trust the emergency alerts. Don't go to evaluation centers. And if you see yourself walking down the street, run. Recording ends. Partial transcript, pirate radio broadcast. July 22nd, 2025, 5:42 a.m. Static and interference throughout broadcast. Testing 1-2. If you can hear this, you're tuned to 89.7 FM. This is not an official emergency broadcast. I repeat, this is not official. This is Marcus Devereaux broadcasting from location withheld for security. The citywide blackout continues as sunrise approaches. If you're listening, stay inside, away from windows. Do not respond to emergency alerts. Do not go to evaluation centers. What follows is everything I've learned in the past 6 hours. They're using our emergency broadcast system. The alerts aren't just compromised. They're being used to prepare us for something they call the transition. I've managed to access an isolated transmitter operating on backup power, but I don't know how long the signal will last before they find it. I made it through the maintenance tunnels beneath my radio station, avoiding 3 separate search parties of, I don't even know what to call them anymore. Duplicates? Mimics? They all wear familiar faces now. Some are police officers, others are civilians I recognize from around the city. All moving with that same coordinated precision, communicating without words. I reached the backup transmitter facility 20 minutes ago. The good news, it was unoccupied. The bad news, the security monitors showed what's happening outside. They're everywhere. Hundreds of them moving through the streets in organized patterns, like a search grid. Most were the faces of New Orleans residents, but some still maintain the original stranger appearance, that blank-faced figure in a gray suit. Those seem to be directing the others, standing at street corners, motionless except for their heads rotating to track movements. Something else I've noticed, they're converging on the city's power infrastructure. Teams of duplicates are gathered at substations, transmission lines, junction boxes. They're not sabotaging the equipment. They're modifying it, adding those same pulsing devices I found at the radio station. I believe they engineered this blackout themselves, not to hide their activities, but to prepare our systems for whatever transition they're planning at sunrise. If you're near a window with a view of the skyline, you might notice something else, the cell towers. Even in the blackout, they're active, emanating a faint blue glow. That sound of door closing in background. Hold on. I thought I secured the entrance. Let me check the security feed. Pause. Sound of typing. Oh God. The cameras show an empty hallway, but I clearly heard the door. They've learned to avoid detection. I need to. Crashing sound. Static increases. Back. Sorry. False alarm. Just equipment shifting as the generator cycles. Where was I? The cell towers. They're pulsing in a synchronized pattern across the city, all operating despite the blackout. The pattern matches the subsonic frequencies I extracted from the emergency broadcasts. Wait, someone's coming. For real this time. Sound of movement, breathing. There's someone in the stairwell leading to this room. Heavy footsteps, not trying to hide their approach. Could be a survivor, or one of them learning to mimic desperation. Door opening. Agent Winters, female voice, distant from microphone. Devereaux. Thank God. I've been following your broadcast signal. Marcus's voice closer. How did you survive? I heard shots. Winters' voice. Hit one of them. They bleed. Devereaux. Not blood, but they bleed. Bought me enough time to escape. Been moving underground through storm drains since then. Sound of shuffling. Equipment being moved. What's that you're carrying? Winters' voice. Evidence. Found one of them. Changing. Transforming from the stranger template to a duplicate. It didn't complete the process. Partial transformation. Can I see it? Winters' voice hesitant. It's disturbing, but you need to see what we're dealing with. Sound of zipper. Then Marcus gasping. Jesus Christ. That's Officer Baptiste's face, but only half formed. The other half is, what is that material? Winters' voice. Some kind of biomechanical construct. Look at the internal structure where it's exposed. It's like circuitry, but organic. And these filaments connecting to what would be the brainstem. Winters' voice. This confirms what I suspected. They're not replacing people, they're creating interfaces. Living conduits. For what? Winters' voice. For whatever's coming through at sunrise. This isn't an invasion in the traditional sense. It's an infrastructure project. We need to get this on camera. Document it before. Sound of alarms in distance. What's that noise? Winters' voice urgent. They've found the transmission. We need to move. Grab what you can. Wait, let me just... Listeners, we're moving locations. Stay tuned if you can. Remember, avoid the transmission cuts. Static for 3 minutes before resuming. Back. We've relocated to a maintenance room 2 floors down. The alarm was a building security system reactivating despite the blackout. Agent Winters thinks they're bringing systems back online selectively, preparing for whatever happens at sunrise. Winters has been tracking this phenomenon since Seattle. She has information that was classified until now. This isn't the second occurrence. It's the 7th. Small coastal towns first, then Seattle, then Savannah, Georgia, then Winters' voice in background. They're adapting with each iteration, learning our responses. New Orleans is the largest deployment yet. Tell them about the aftermath. Winters' voice, closer to microphone now. After Seattle, we maintained surveillance on affected individuals. Those who encountered the entities directly and survived showed subtle neurological changes. Increased sensitivity to certain frequencies. Behavioral modifications. Most concerning were the blackout periods. Moments where subjects would stop whatever they were doing, become perfectly still for seconds or minutes, then resume as if nothing happened. Like they were receiving instructions? Winters' voice. Or transmitting data. We found correlations between these episodes and unusual signal bursts from modified communications infrastructure in the area. Citizens being turned into... what? Antennas? Nodes? Winters' voice. More like synapses in a distributed neural network. Human brains connected to something else, something vast. The Stranger Protocol isn't about replacing humans. It's about networking them. Sound of device powering up. What are you doing? Winters' voice. Checking for updates from my team. I have a secured satellite phone that... Wait, you said all your communication was compromised. How do you have a working satellite phone during a blackout when they're controlling all signals? Winters' voice. Pause. Emergency channels. Completely separate system. But you told me in the French Quarter they were interfering with all communications. Silence for 3 seconds. Agent Winters. Winters' voice. Different tone. You're very observant, Marcus. It's why we've been interested in you from the beginning. Sound of movement, things being knocked over. Stay back. How long have you been? When did they get to you? Winter's voice, mechanical precision. Agent Winters was never here, Marcus. The woman you met in the French Quarter was already one of us. We needed you to lead us to the device you removed from your radio station. An important component. Sound of struggle, microphone being knocked around. Get away from me. What are you? Entity using Winter's voice. We are the Advanced Integration System, preparing your species for incorporation. Your emergency broadcast infrastructure was the perfect foundation, designed to reach everyone simultaneously, trusted implicitly. Why are you telling me this? Entity's voice. Because you're broadcasting to approximately 17 listeners, Marcus, an insufficient number to impact our timeline. And because your neural architecture is particularly valuable. Your familiarity with broadcast systems makes you an optimal node for our network. Sound of door opening, multiple footsteps entering. No, how did you find this place so quickly? Entity's voice. We've been aware of your movements since you took our calibration device. It's been transmitting your location. We simply waited until you reached a suitable broadcast point to make contact. Multiple voices speaking in unison, including duplicates of Marcus, Baptiste, Eliza. The transition begins in 23 minutes at sunrise. Your resistance is useful data, but ultimately irrelevant. Stay back. Listeners, they're herding me toward the sound of struggle, equipment crashing. Listen to me. At sunrise, they're activating something citywide. The emergency alerts, the power grid, cell towers. It's all connected. Get out of the city if you still. Marcus's voice cuts off, replaced by multiple synchronized voices. Citizens of New Orleans. The calibration is complete. Transition commences at sunrise. Your cooperation is appreciated but not required. Emergency services will resume normal function following integration. Single voice resumes. Marcus's voice, but with unnatural cadence. This concludes our emergency broadcast. Please stand by for further instructions at sunrise. Static intensifies, then broadcast cuts to standard emergency alert tone. Emergency alert system. This is not a test. All citizens must remain indoors for atmospheric calibration procedures. Compliance ensures optimal integration. Non-compliance will not prevent participation but may result in neurological fragmentation during the transition process. Sunrise protocols activate in 17 minutes and 42 seconds. Transmission ends. Fragmented audio recovered from cell phone recording, July 22nd, 2025, 6:15 a.m. to 7:42 a.m. Static, distortion throughout. Voice identified as Marcus Devereaux. Speaking in hushed, hurried tones. They didn't take me. Not completely. When they surrounded me at the broadcast station, something unexpected happened. The device I took from the radio station, the one I'd sealed in the lead line case, it reacted when they all reached for me simultaneously. There was a pulse, like an EMP but focused. All of them froze for precisely 4.7 seconds. Long enough for me to escape through the maintenance shaft. I don't know why I'm still recording this. Force of habit from years in radio, I guess. Document everything. If anyone finds this, sound of heavy breathing, movement. I'm in the storm drainage system beneath Canal Street. The transition they planned for sunrise, it started, but something's wrong. The sky, it's not right. Everything above ground is bathed in a light that isn't sunlight. More blue, more clinical. And the sounds, a city should never be this quiet during catastrophe. I need to get to higher ground, see what's happening. There's an access point near the convention center that should let me surface safely. Sound of splashing water, labored movement. Recording breaks. Resumes approximately 17 minutes later. Oh my God. I'm at street level now, looking across the river toward Algiers. The skyline is fractured, like reality is splitting along invisible seams. Buildings standing perfectly intact next to ones that seem to flicker between substantiality and something else. something geometric but non-Euclidean, structures that hurt to look at directly. The sky is wrong too. It's daylight, but there's no sun, just a uniform blue glow that casts no shadows. And those ripples spreading outward from what looks like the central business district. Like waves in space itself. There are people on the streets, but they're not running or panicking. They're walking with that same coordinated precision I saw in the duplicates, all moving toward central gathering points. Some still look fully human. Others have partially transformed, their features blurring at the edges, clothes merging with flesh in places. Wait, emergency vehicles are moving through the streets now. Police cruisers, ambulances, even military Humvees, lights flashing but no sirens. They're broadcasting something through loudspeakers, distant amplified voice. This is the New Orleans Emergency Management Agency. The atmospheric calibration is proceeding as scheduled. Citizens experiencing discomfort or visual anomalies should proceed to the nearest transition center for adjustment. Resistance causes unnecessary cellular damage. The voice keeps switching between different speakers mid-sentence. One moment male, then female, then multiple voices in chorus. Like they're testing which is most effective. My phone just vibrated. How is it even working in this? Sound of phone notification. Emergency alert. Integration progress. 43% complete. Citizens experiencing physical discontinuity should remain still for recalibration. Physical discontinuity? What does that even? Sharp intake of breath. My left hand is flickering, like bad reception on an analog TV. One moment solid, the next transparent, revealing too many bones, pulsing circuitry beneath that shouldn't be there. It doesn't hurt, but I can feel something else there. Awareness flooding in through the glitches. Data. So much data flowing through what used to be just flesh. Recording breaks. Resumes approximately 23 minutes later. Background noise significantly different. Electronic humming. Distant voices. I've taken shelter in an abandoned storefront on Decatur. The windows provide a view of Jackson Square, which has been transformed into one of their transition centers. Hundreds of people gathered there, standing in concentric circles around a central structure that wasn't there yesterday. A tower of what looks like black glass and pulsing organic matter, stretching impossibly high. The integration is accelerating. Every few minutes, a ripple of change passes through the crowd. With each wave, more people transform, not into duplicates anymore, but into something new. Still human-shaped but altered, their bodies incorporating elements that look technological and biological simultaneously. Some have what look like access panels fused with the skin of their forearms. Others have eyes that glow with the same blue light as the sky, and they're all connected somehow. When one moves, ripples of subtle adjustment pass through those nearby, like a murmuration of starlings. The emergency alerts are constant now, no longer coming just through phones but broadcast from the tower itself, directly into my mind. Emergency alert. Integration progress. 58% complete. Neural network expansion exceeding expectations. Prepare for consciousness merger. I can feel it pressing against my thoughts. A vast, alien intelligence trying to connect. Not malevolent exactly, but utterly indifferent to individual autonomy. It doesn't want to destroy humanity. It wants to upgrade us, incorporate us into something larger. A biological components in a city-sized organism. Sound of breaking glass in distance. Something's happening by the cathedral. A group of people, still fully human, are fighting back, trying to approach the tower with what look like improvised weapons. They're being met by transformed citizens and others. The original gray-suited strangers, only now I can see them clearly. They're not wearing suits at all. Their bodies are the suits, perfect mimicries of human form but flexible, adaptable. The humans don't stand a chance. They're not being killed, worse. As the transformed citizens touch them, the resistors convulse, their bodies reshaping in seconds rather than the gradual transition affecting the rest of us. Forced integration. Wait, I recognize one of them. Dr. Eliza Montclair. She's leading the resistance, shouting instructions I can't hear from here. And beside her, it can't be Officer Baptiste, but he was transformed days ago. I saw his duplicate with my own eyes. They're heading this way. I need to. Sounds of door opening. Multiple footsteps. Eliza. Baptiste. How did you? New voice. Female. Identified as Dr. Montclair. Marcus. Thank God. We thought they'd taken you when the broadcast cut out. Marcus's voice, confused. But you were captured, and Baptiste was duplicated. I saw his doppelganger. New voice, male. Identified as Officer Baptiste. They got my partner, not me. I've been underground since I left that notebook. Found Dr. Montclair hiding in the university archives 2 days ago. Eliza's voice. We've gathered others. People who've resisted the integration somehow. The duplicates, they can only perfectly copy someone after extended observation. If you keep moving, stay unpredictable, they can't complete the template. Marcus's voice. But what about the transition? The whole city is transforming. Eliza's voice, urgent. Not completely. We've identified structural weaknesses in their network. The tower in Jackson Square. It's the central node, but it's unstable. The integration is failing in sectors where their emergency broadcast coverage was weakest. Baptiste's voice. That's why they needed the emergency alert system, not just to communicate, but to prepare human neural pathways for compatibility. Areas with poor emergency alert reception are showing resistance to the transformation. Marcus's voice, realization dawning. That's why they wanted me. My knowledge of broadcast systems, my radio voice. They needed someone who understood how to reach everyone. Eliza's voice. Exactly. And now we need that same knowledge to disrupt it. We have a plan, but we need to access the emergency broadcast override system. The one you were using before they found you. Sound of distant rumbling, building shaking. What's happening? Baptiste's voice, looking outside. Reality fractures spreading. Look at the square. Sound of movement, glass breaking. Oh God, the tower is pulsing. Each pulse sends out a visible wave that distorts everything it passes through. Buildings, streets, people, all momentarily revealing their new underlying structure before snapping back to apparent normalcy. The waves are coming faster now. Eliza's voice. It's accelerating integration. We're running out of time. Marcus's voice. The broadcast center might still be accessible through the underground maintenance tunnels, but my hand, look at it. The integration is affecting me too. Eliza's voice. We all have symptoms, but whatever they are, they're struggling with the complexity of human consciousness. The network is unstable, too many variables, too much individual resistance. Baptiste's voice, determined. We have a 30-minute window before complete system lock-in. After that, New Orleans becomes their first fully integrated node, a template for the rest of the world. Sound of equipment being gathered. Marcus's voice. Then we move now. Whatever I'm becoming, I'm still me enough to fight back. Recording cuts out with sound of emergency alert tone asterisk. Emergency alert. Integrity breach detected in Sector 7. Dissident elements identified. Containment protocols initiated. Integration will proceed as scheduled. Current progress. 73% complete. All citizens should disregard unauthorized communications and proceed to nearest alignment center for final transition. Resistance is inefficient. Fragmented audio/text log. Marcus Devereaux, July 22nd, 2025. 9:14 a.m. unknown. Sound quality degraded. Digital artifacts throughout recording. Voice identified as Marcus Devereaux speaking in measured, occasionally distant tones. I don't know if this is still recording properly. The device itself is changing, like everything else. The casing has partially fused with my palm, circuits intertwining with my veins. But I need to document what happened, what's happening, for whoever, whatever might find this after. We made it to the broadcast center, or what was left of it. The building structure had become fluid, walls breathing like lung tissue, corridors reshaping themselves as we moved through them. The main transmission room was unrecognizable. All the equipment had merged into a single organic-mechanical hybrid mass, pulsing with that same blue light that had replaced the sun. Eliza said we had 17 minutes before complete integration lockdown. Baptiste kept watch at what used to be the doorway while Eliza and I worked on the transmission system. My knowledge of the equipment was almost useless. Everything had been transformed beyond recognition. But somehow my changing hand seemed to know what to do. When I touched certain surfaces, information flowed directly into my consciousness. System schematics, access protocols, transmission pathways. It's fighting me, I told Eliza. Part of me wants to help it, to complete the integration. She grabbed my shoulders. That's not you, Marcus. Remember who you are. What you're fighting for. What was I fighting for? New Orleans? Humanity? Those concepts were becoming increasingly abstract, less meaningful with each pulse from the tower. I could feel myself slipping away, my identity dissolving into the larger network consciousness. The boundaries between Marcus Devereaux and the entity were blurring. I found it, I finally said, my fingers sinking into what used to be the main control console. The emergency broadcast override. But I can't disable it. The system recognition is biometric now. It's keyed to Agent Winters. Eliza's face fell. Winters was taken days ago. She's one of them now. Not completely, Baptiste said from his position. Look, through the rippling membrane that had replaced the window, we could see a figure approaching across the transformed lobby. Agent Winters, her body partially integrated. Right arm completely transformed into something mechanical and alien. Face flickering between human features and something geometric and impossible. But her movements were different from the others, jerky, fighting against some internal directive. She's resisting, I whispered. Part of her is still human. Baptiste moved toward what had been the door. I'll bring her up. Wait, Eliza warned, but he was already gone. We had 9 minutes remaining. Outside, the transformation of the city was accelerating. Through the window membrane, I could see buildings losing their rigid structures, becoming more organic, more connected. Streets were no longer fixed pathways but flowing channels, people moving through them like blood cells, all pulsing in perfect synchronization. The tower in Jackson Square had grown, tendrils extending outward through the French Quarter, connecting to smaller nodes throughout the city. Baptiste returned with Winters. Her body was trembling with the effort of resistance, voice alternating between her own and something multilayered and strange. Marcus Devereaux, she struggled to say. You were right. Not invasion, evolution. They've been watching us for centuries, waiting for our technology to reach compatibility threshold. Why New Orleans? Eliza demanded. Confluence, Winters replied, her voice momentarily stabilizing. Cultural crossroads, maximum diversity of human consciousness patterns. Ideal test case. I guided her to the console. We need to override the emergency broadcast system. Stop the integration. Cannot stop it, she said, her transformed arms sinking into the console. Too far along, but can alter it. Maintain autonomy within network. The console responded to her touch, the organic mechanical mass reshaping itself. Displays materialized in the air, showing the current broadcast pattern. A complex, pulsing signal that matched the rhythm of the tower. Winters began manipulating it, her movements becoming more fluid as she worked. 5 minutes, Eliza warned, checking a device that was rapidly transforming in her hand. What are you doing? I asked Winters. Making choice, she said, her voice now overlaid with others, a chorus of identities. They didn't understand. Humans need individuality. Without it, network fails. The displays showed the broadcast pattern changing, becoming more complex, more chaotic. You're introducing randomness into the system, Eliza realized. Entropy. Winters nodded jerkily. Human essence. A violent tremor shook the building. Through the window, we could see the tower in Jackson Square pulsing erratically, the perfect synchronization of the transformed citizens faltering. "It's working," Baptiste said, his voice tinged with hope for the first time in days. Then Winters convulsed, her body arching backward. Control, reasserting. Cannot maintain. Finish, pattern. Her transformed arm withdrew from the console, the displays flickering. "No!" I lunged forward, plunging my own transforming hand into the console. The sensation was indescribable, like having my consciousness simultaneously compressed and expanded. I could feel the entity's awareness flooding through me, vast and ancient and utterly alien. But I could also feel the connections to every human in New Orleans, the network of transformed consciousness stretching throughout the city. "Marcus," Eliza's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You're losing yourself." But I wasn't losing myself. I was becoming something more. Not just Marcus Devereaux, but Marcus connected to thousands of others, each still distinct, each fighting to maintain their core identity within the network. I completed the pattern Winters had started, using my knowledge of broadcast systems to amplify it, to ensure it reached every part of the network. The console pulsed beneath my hand, sending out the modified signal. The tower in Jackson Square shuddered violently, blue light flaring. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze, the transformation, the movement of the transformed citizens, even time itself. Then reality fractured. The world seemed to split along invisible seams, showing glimpses of multiple potential futures overlapping. In one, the integration completed, New Orleans becoming a perfect node in a vast alien network. In another, the integration failed catastrophically, the entity withdrawing, leaving devastation in its wake. But the timeline that solidified, that became our reality, was neither. The tower collapsed in on itself, not violently but gradually, like a tent being slowly folded. The blue light dimmed but didn't disappear entirely, instead diffusing throughout the city. The transformed citizens stopped their synchronized movements, each one freezing momentarily before beginning to move independently again. "What happened?" Baptiste asked, staring out at the changed city. "Compromise," I said, and I knew it was true. I could feel it through my connection to the network, diminished now but still present. The entity realized it couldn't fully integrate us without destroying what made us valuable. So it's adapting, coexisting. My hand withdrew from the console, still transformed but no longer changing further. The same was happening across the city. The transformation had halted at various stages for different people, leaving a population fundamentally altered but not completely absorbed. "We're still us," Eliza said wonderingly, looking at her own partially transformed hand. "Just more." "Not everyone made it," I said, feeling the absences in the network, those who had been too fully integrated to retain their individuality. But most did. 3 weeks have passed since that day. New Orleans exists in a state of suspended transformation. The blue light still suffuses everything, strongest at dawn and dusk. Buildings retain elements of their new organic mechanical nature but have largely stabilized. People walk the streets, changed but recognizable, each carrying within them a connection to something larger while maintaining their core identities. The rest of the world has quarantined us, of course. Military blockades surround the city, scientists and government officials studying us from a distance. They're afraid of what we've become, afraid the transformation will spread. Perhaps it will eventually, perhaps it should, because I can feel what we gained in the compromise. The entity gave us knowledge, perspective, connection, a glimpse of something vast and eternal. And we gave it something it hadn't expected to value: chaos, individuality, the unpredictable beauty of human consciousness. Sometimes, walking through Jackson Square where the tower once stood, I see the stranger, that same face that started appearing across the city months ago. Not a duplicate now, but an avatar, a visual representation of the entity trying to understand us. It watches, learns, adapts, Sometimes it even smiles. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still hear the emergency broadcasts echoing through the network that connects us all. No longer warnings, but reminders of what we almost lost and what we've become. Emergency alert. Integration stabilized. Autonomy preserved. Coexistence established. This is not an invasion. This is evolution. Eliza calls it a symbiosis. Baptiste calls it an occupation. Agent Winters, still straddling the boundary between human and other, calls it inevitable. I don't know what to call it. I only know that when I put on my headphones at the radio station. Yes, we still have radio, though the signals carry more than just sound now, and speak into the microphone, my voice reaches places it never could before. And sometimes, when I'm broadcasting late at night, I can feel listeners not just in New Orleans, but far beyond, curious, afraid, fascinated, waiting for the stranger to appear in their cities too. End of recording.